Hey, what's up YouTube? I wanted to have a quick discussion about autofocus on the Panasonic S5, and I'm talking about the original Panasonic S5, not the Mark II, not the Mark II-X, and I want to talk about it also as opposed to getting a Sony camera. And also, I'm speaking as somebody who used to use a Sony a6400, and so I know what great autofocus is, and I'll just say right from the beginning that on the Panasonic S5, the autofocus is not awesome. It's not even really all that good, to be honest with you. It's alright, you know what I mean? Like, for a YouTube video, for doing something like this, it's okay. Although, I'm not using it now. I'm using manual focus because I don't trust it. Like, why bother using it? Especially if I'm this close to the camera, I'm like maybe 1.5 feet away. Why would I use it if I don't have to? You know what I mean? Like, why even risk pulsing or any kind of weirdness? Why have that kind of anxiety when I could just use manual focus, right? So the whole manual focus versus autofocus thing is like a big deal to so many people when buying a camera. And so I just kind of felt like I wanted to make an argument for maybe you don't need autofocus if you can, you know, save over $1,000 and get an amazing camera that has okay autofocus if you really want to use it, but also it has a great opportunity to really learn how to use a camera with manual focus. And I understand it makes things more difficult. Autofocus obviously gives you a great advantage in many, many ways. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I love autofocus, it's great, but I have the Panasonic S5 and I don't feel like upgrading to a Mark II. And the other thing is, the reason I'm making an argument for it is because you could buy a Panasonic S5 right now, like new, on MPB or eBay or whatever for under $1,000. You're talking about a full frame camera, a 10-bit 422 4K 60 camera for under $1,000. That's amazing. And the image quality is ridiculous, plus all the video assist features that you have, like waveforms and things like that, anamorphic support. Like, you're getting a great camera. Viewfinder, it's a great hybrid camera, you know? So I'm making the argument for it because I think it could save people a lot of money, you know, especially if you're just starting or you're just learning, or even if you're more experienced and you're used to using manual focus. It's great. Like, if I had the money right now, I'd buy a second one. And as soon as I get my finances together, my computer crapped out on me recently, so I'm getting ready to buy an M2 Mac. So that's where my money's going for now. But I need a second camera. I'm going to get another Panasonic S5. Most probably. Most definitely, because I know I can get one for $1,000 and I'll have two cameras that match perfectly because they're the same camera. So I've been shooting a film and I wanted to talk to you about my experience of using manual focus shooting this film. I have had no problems at all, no inconvenience, everything is flowing, I work really quickly, because once you understand how to use manual focus, you just get used to it and that's the way you shoot. And in fact, if you do plan on being on sets and being a real videographer or professional cinematographer, you're going to have to use manual focus anyway, most of the time. If you're going to shoot anamorphic, if you're going to be on set and you're using cine lenses, chances are you're going to be working manually, okay? Aperture, focus, everything. But I do understand that most of the people watching this video probably are not going to be in that situation. They just want to get a great camera to do the work that they do. Maybe they're just a photographer doing portraits and things like that, or street photography, or a filmmaker doing, you know, things for companies or whatever, where autofocus is a great thing to have. However, I don't think it's necessary all the time. And in my case, it's never necessary because I just don't use it. Now, I only have one lens that's actually an autofocus lens, and it's a Sigma 28-70 f2.8. And the only reason I got it is because I figured I would like to have one decent autofocus lens for situations where I might feel that I need it. If I'm working on a run and guns documentary or something like that, I just wanted to have a good zoom lens, actually. It really had nothing to do with the autofocus. So how do I use the autofocus, though? The way I use it, and the way it is an advantage to me, like, for example, yesterday I was at the George Washington Bridge here in New York City, right? And I was trying to capture things really quickly. And so the way I work is see the frame in my head first. Like I know exactly what I want it to look like. Like every frame that I shoot, I want it to look like a painting. And I can't show you anything from the film right now because I haven't even edited it yet. Like it's not out. I don't want anybody to see anything. But I'm just telling you as a discussion, everything that I shoot, actually I'll add some B-roll to this and try to get some pretty shots. But I always see in my head what I want the frame to look like. And I want every frame to kind of look like a painting. And I also know where I want to focus, and I know what aperture I want to choose. I know how much blurriness I want, how much I want the subject to stand out, whether I want the foreground blurry or the background blurry, or how I want it to go. And so I use the joystick on my Panasonic S5, which most Sony cameras don't have a joystick like this. I find the focus. I can focus really, meticulously, like I can make the box small or I can make it big. I choose what I want to focus on. I get that in focus, and one way to do it with an autofocus lens, there's a button on the back of this camera, which I'll show you here. I'll shoot it with my phone because I don't have another camera. And if you want to capture focus, use the joystick, get to that subject, and then you just press this button and it captures the focus for you. But it keeps you in manual focus, so it just locks it in. It's not going to move. There's not going to be any pulsing. There's not going to be any moving around looking for different things. Birds are not going to fly in and take the focus away, or motorcycles or people or whatever. You're just going to be focused on the subject and it's going to sit there. So in that case, the autofocus is a good tool to lock into something. But it's not really a big deal because the manual focus assist features on this camera are amazing. You can really zoom in and get really, really close to the subject that you want, and use a manual focus lens to get that focus. Like it's just easy. And once you get used to it, you don't feel like you want for anything. Like you don't feel like, oh damn, I wish I had autofocus right now. I never feel that way. So yes, autofocus is amazing, and especially with the AI and the way that they're doing it now, it's like ridiculous. It'll follow bugs and birds and animals and people and whatever, cars and airplanes. Like it'll follow anything, and that is amazing without a doubt. But I still kind of feel like it takes away some of the creativity from me. Like if I'm really choosing what I want to focus on, and I guess I can just touch the screen on a Sony camera and maybe it'll lock into that subject and just stay there, but I doubt it. Like if somebody walks across or whatever, autofocus is always subject to be dragged away from what you want it to focus on. And so all I'm saying is, I'm not saying that the Panasonic S5 and its autofocus is a better way to work. What I am saying is a totally valuable, easy way to work that you will get used to and won't feel that you need anything else. And in fact, it'll raise your level of proficiency as a filmmaker, because you'll have to learn how to do it without relying upon AI or autofocus or whatever they want to call it in a camera. You're just relying on you and your skills. And that's a great thing to have, right? Because then you can walk on a set and then maybe you can become a professional cinematographer or step on any set or use any camera. A lot of professional cinematographers don't even own their own camera because they get on set and then somebody just hands them an Arri Alexa or a Red or whatever. They have to know how to use it, and they certainly have to know how to manually focus, manually use the aperture, make those choices. I think it's a great skill to have, to know how to work in manual mode. And so, given all of that, the Panasonic S5, as powerful as it is, 2 card slots, like I said, all the manual assists, the preamps in here are really good. It's a great camera. It's an amazing camera. The picture quality is great. The dual native ISO of 640 and 4000 with V-Log is incredible. It looks beautiful. For under $1,000, 4K 10-bit 422, come on. I mean, it's incredible. It's a great camera. Great hybrid camera. Whether you're a filmmaker or a photographer, it's a good choice. So if you want to save yourself $1,000, $1,500, whatever, $800, depending on if you get the ZV-E1 or now the A6700 or something like that, I think those are amazing cameras. They're amazing. If somebody gave me one, I'd be very happy. But like I said, if I had extra money in my pocket right now, I would choose this camera, the Panasonic S5. And I'm not talking about the Mark II or the 2X. I'm talking about the original, because I would go to MPB and I would get one of these like new, still in the box, Panasonic S5s for 900 and change. I think it's a great option. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. And you know, coming off the experience, I just finished shooting this film, and I didn't feel like I was missing anything. I nailed every shot that I wanted. It's gotten to the point where when I take this camera out, I know exactly what everything is going to look like before I get back to my computer. Like, I know what it's going to look like. This camera has become a part of my body, a part of my creativity. Like, when I look at something, it's just like my eyes. Like, I know what it's going to look like, and I get to choose, like I said, what subject I want to focus on, how much aperture I want to deal with, whether I want it wide open or stop down, or, you know, I can control the frame. You know, if I'm using an anamorphic lens, I can see it on my screen because it de-squeezes in camera. It's got stabilization in camera. The stabilization in this camera is so much better than any of the Sony cameras, without question. Like, Panasonic rules when it comes to handheld stabilization. Now, yes, you can use catalyst browse in the Sony cameras, and that's cool, but you don't have to do that here. You could just get it in camera. I mean, I hardly ever use a gimbal. Now, I'm somebody who likes that handheld look, but, you know, I use my tripod all the time because I do, like I said, I do like to create a frame that looks like a painting. And for me, more often than not, I like all the action to take place in the frame without camera movement. But when I do use camera movement, I've kind of gotten it down where I can make it look really smooth because the stabilization in this camera is off the charts good. So, yeah, I tried to say goodbye before, but then I thought of a few extra things, and I'm sure there's more that I'm not thinking of right now too, because I'm just kind of doing this off the top of my head. But yeah, that's my argument for the Panasonic S5. Again, Sony a6700, the Sony FX30, all of these are amazing cameras. The ZV-E1, off the charts good, highly recommended. But if you want to save quite a bit of money, if you want to get this camera and then have money left over to get a great lens or two, and more lenses are becoming available for the L mount, and you know, you can get these series anamorphic lenses like really reasonably now. I highly recommend it. It's an amazing camera. I'm so happy with it, and it'll raise your level of skill as a filmmaker and a photographer. That's without question. Like, I feel like if you get a Sony camera with all the, you know, all the bells and whistles and all the assists that it gives you, all the assistance that it gives you, you're kind of running before you're walking, and you're going to miss out on certain skills that are just good to have. So, having said that, I think if you're really an experienced shooter, then I think it's cool to get one of those cameras. Because first of all, you're probably getting paid to do your work, so you can afford to get one of those cameras. And you already know how to manually focus and manually deal with your aperture and stuff like that. So, you know, then you're just looking for convenience, then I could see that, you know what I mean? But if you're learning, and if you want to learn on a camera that is a professional camera that you can make a film that would be worthy of HBO or Netflix or any theater, this camera is that good. The dynamic range on this camera is that good, without question. So, that's my opinion. Panasonic S5, I love it so much. Right now I'm using a Sigma 28-70 just because it was on the camera and I didn't feel like changing lenses. I usually walk around with my Minolta Telesor 28mm f2.8. It's an old vintage lens, all manual. And I also have a Minolta Rokkor 50mm f1.4, which is an incredible lens. They both look beautiful, really, really amazing. Have some aberration because they're old, and I just love the character of them. But I usually walk around with the 28mm because it's so light. And, you know, I like, if I'm just, you know, I take my camera with me everywhere, every day. So, excuse me, if I could keep it a little lighter, that's cool. But honestly, the Sigma lens, 28-70, it's really convenient. It's amazing. It can look like anything. I mean, it's not too sharp. I don't know, sometimes people say it's too sharp. Like, I can make it look however I want it to look. I can match it to my vintage lenses. I always have an ND filter on, and it's light, and it is connected electronically to the camera, so I can use the autofocus if I want to, and sometimes I do. but not in the way most people use it. Like, I don't use it for talking head stuff or whatever. I have in the past, but I'm always thinking about it. Like, is it keeping me? Is it losing me? Like, yeah, the Panasonic S5 does not have good autofocus, but it's good enough to be used as an assist tool. In that case, it's awesome. Panasonic S5, highly recommended. Obviously, they're not paying me for this, because if you look at how many subscribers I have and how many views I'll have for this, nobody is, giving me anything. But I just wanted to give my opinion. I felt like it was valuable to have, so take it for what it's worth. Good luck with your journey, and see you on the next one. Peace out, all that kind of good stuff.